just this once, being there for her. With the last of my clothes slipped on, I hastily grabbed the phone off the desk. Luckily, the number for a local taxi company is still in my call history. A gruff, unenthusiastic voice announces the name of the company while I pace around the room. It takes some effort to slow down my voice and keep it clear over the phone. The chilly night air sweeps against me as I open the dormitory door. But nonetheless, I keep up my brisk speed as I half jog, half run out the school gates. It may not be curfew just yet, but it's precariously close. If there were a guard around, they'd no doubt have some questions for me, but it looks like I've managed to come out just before they arrive, or they're around a corner. My pace picks up as I make my way through the school gardens, their nighttime allure all but lost when I begin to run to the school gate. The lamps of the courtyard, dim as they are, provide just enough illumination to light the way and prevent me from tripping over. The buildings themselves take a rustic, almost antique-looking edge when I glance at them. Looking back, it seems strange that they once appeared so dark and looming to me. Now they just look to be somewhat anachronistic school buildings, the same as any others bar their age. Leaving the gates behind me, I pull up to a stop just before the taxi, parked just as Akira's car had been. Its gaudy and brightly lit sign looks out of place in the quiet country backdrop. I impatiently squeeze myself through the door, giving the driver the address for where the two should hopefully be staying. By the time the taxi pulls up after its trip at a maddening casual speed, it's well and truly deep into the night. The house is truly enormous, its sheer size much larger than I'd expected, and ominously still. Fearing the worst, I asked the driver to stay just in case my efforts are for naught. A single press of the fancy intercom system outside the gate produces a short electronic melody, and the other wide silent road. It's not long before a somewhat deep, gruff voice can be heard from it. "This is the Hakamichi residence. Please state your name and why you're bothering us this late." I press on, despite inwardly wincing at the reasonably annoyance audible in his voice. Oh no, the father. It's Hisao Nakai. I was hoping to meet Lily or Kira if they're still here. Surprisingly, I managed to summon quite some energy to my voice, enough to make the other side of the intercom silent. A few seconds pass, but just before I press the button again and ask what's going on, a light turns on outside the front door. I strain my eyes to try and make out who is coming through, but as he comes past a large parked car with fishing rods sticking out of the back, his identity becomes clear. His face is typically placid and emotionless as he saunters up to the gate. He's still childlike in his mannerisms. Oh, the address that he saw when he was doing paperwork. Okay, despite his demeanor. With the press of a few buttons from behind the fence, the gate slowly opens. Oh, Hidaki. Hisao, what are you doing here? I think this is the most emotion I've ever heard from his voice. Not that it would be hard to reach that mark. Akira told me that she and Lily would be staying here before they left for their flight. I need to talk to Lily just one last time. Are they still here? The look on his face says everything. I failed. It was too late. The one time I was actually needed to act quickly, and actually it's possible. What is it? He's a bit taken back by my fervor, but I can't help it at this point. They left not too long ago, only a few minutes before you arrived, in fact. If you go straight to the airport, you might be able to... Hisao? I dart back towards the waiting taxi, grabbing what little money in my pocket as I go. Thanks, Hidaki. With that, I take a seat and in short order bark out my destination. My chest beats wildly as I tear down the streets, my body twisting this way and that, to slip between the pedestrians walking back and forth beside me. With the road solidly blocked by taxis and other cars dropping off passengers and picking up others in the time that they have to wait, we ended up having to stop almost a block away. But that's the past now. What matters is reaching Lily. One foot hits the ground, the other quickly follows without slightest thought, as if my legs were taking on a life of their own and all my mind can do is concentrate on the view ahead of me. Just one glimpse of that long hair of hers, that long yellow hair that was the same color as the wheat that stretched out as far as the eye could see. In the end, I depended on Lily, just like Hanako did. Even after we started going out, it still doesn't feel like she really ever let herself depend on me. Except for one moment, that one moment where we held each other tightly on that bright yellow field. At that time, she must have feared losing me, just as she did everyone else. That's why, just this once, the night air wraps around me, draining every last remnant of warmth out of my body to the extent that it feels like midwinter than a summer night. My fingers, my hands, my feet, they are all feel incredibly cold. Increasingly cold? Yeah, increasingly cold. The sound of the passing crowds is reduced to no more than a background hum, while the sound of my shoes hitting the pavement echoes loudly, every step surging towards the person I have to catch. Forced by my chest tightening in response to the cold night, I rest an arm over it to try and settle it down. When the airport comes into view, though, I realize this feeling as once I felt before. Not now. Of all times this, please, not now. I take a gulp and soldier on regardless, pushing my body as far as it will go. Sweat pours off me as I hurl forward, my shoulders hitting someone's side, and my mind suddenly floating with emotions and memories. I continue on without an apology. I have to keep moving now. If I stop, I'm not sure I could begin again. Even if I could, it would all be for naught if I'm not in time. I hit another person, then another, offering little resistance, getting bounced about. My feet feel numb, my arms are losing all feeling, my chest forces me to hunch over awkwardly, tightening ever more. That afternoon in the snow, that time with my life irreversibly changed. Images of Wanako and that damned letter flashed over and over in my mind. The first love I'd lost thanks to my condition. I can't let that happen again. I don't care what happens to me anymore. I just need to see her one last time. There. Aw, this is cool. A sliver of yellow and white comes into view some distance down the road. Her figure silhouetted by lights emanating from the airport's entrance. Lily! Lily! Lily, stop, please, Lily. Come on, Lily, I know you're hearing far beyond norm. Gah! My view suddenly spins out of control and end up on the ground, my body haphazardly sprawling after hitting someone and stumbling over. Before I can assess the damage, an unbelievable pain ignites my body. All of my thoughts are blanked as I curl up and frantically clutch at my chest. Hey, are you okay? That was a really bad fall. This pain, I can't... Any sharp knock would do me in. Any overexertion. I thought I could overcome my limits this once. Something's wrong with him! What's the matter? The voices of those gathering around me are gradually replaced by a loud ringing in my ears. By now I'm unable to move my head. My eyes turn upwards to see that mute moving of their lips. Even as I clutch my chest, I realize I can't feel my fingers anymore, nor my feet. It feels like my entire body is shutting down, starting from the extremities. With one last effort, I turn my head down the road towards the airport entrance that's casting its light over me. Lily is there, behind the crowd. Her head is tilted, but only just slightly. Whoa, I can feel my vision just dimming as I try to yell out, but nothing emerges from my mouth, despite my best efforts. Slowly but surely, my vision begins to black out, as seen before me. So, this is how it ends. I failed. I was so close. So very close, but at the very last moment, my condition seized my chance at a new life and dragged me back. Now I'm going to die, sprawled out just meters from an airport with a crowd of babbling people surrounding me, and with Lily leaving for Scotland just a little distance ahead. Lily. There we go. The last word extinguishes the last of my energy. The word falls into a deep, inescapable blackness as every muscle in my body suddenly shuts down. I'm sorry, Lily. I was too late. Jeesh. I was like, I hope it doesn't end like this either. Ellipsis. Whoa. What's going on? As I slowly open my eyes, a bright white light assaults my retinas. For minutes I just lay where I am, mindlessly staring ahead while my scattered thoughts coalesce in my slowly waking mind. Slowly but surely, the white begins to come into focus as a bare expanse begins to be drawn across my field of vision. It's only when the light fixture comes into view that my mind clicks that this is the ceiling above me. Slowly levering myself up, I silently absorb through all my senses the details of the room I'm in. The smell and taste of a strong bleach hang in the air, lending to the impression of a place just slightly too clean to be natural. Inoffensive pale peach-colored walls, all presumably painted without a crack, stain, or imperfection, A single framed painting hangs on the wall, perfectly straightened, like the walls. It's as boring and inoffensive as can be. My attention is grabbed by the translucent curtain waving around my vision, my eyes following it to the open window it covers. When I move my right arm to try and lift myself up and look through it, I feel the catheter dig in uncomfortably. It's only now, too, that I notice the cannula tubes winding around my cheeks into my nose. After some fidgeting, I settle for just looking around the corner of the window. Beyond the thick leaves of several large trees, I can see the greenery below, backing out onto a field. You should have just called Lily or something, I don't know. A customary island of green on the outskirts of the city. Judging by the sun outside, it's noon. Of which day, though, I'm not sure. So, I'm in a hospital once again. I let out a long, tired breath as I try to collect my scattered thoughts. My mind seemingly cast in a dozen directions all at once, with as many emotions running through me. After slowly lying back down, I decide to start at the beginning. Why I'm here. I cast my mind back. I can't work out a smooth recollection of what happened, the events of last night, or whichever night it was. Come back more as a series of snapshots than any cohesive memory. Lying on my bed, looking at the origami bird, talking to Hidaki outside the Hakamichi residence, running down the street, passing pedestrians and bumping into more and more of them, falling, looking up at the searingly bright airport entrance, seeing Lily's back as I lay on the ground. The silence of the private room suddenly feels overwhelming. So that's it. I had my chance to correct my mistake and blew it. Whether I was at fault of neglecting my medication and disregarding to pace myself, or my body was for giving out so soon, it doesn't matter now. All that matters is that once again, I'm alone. The pastoral blue pillow yields with little resistance as I let myself fall back onto the bed. Its starchy case, alone with the starchy sheets, proving little comfort. Yeah, those are really uncomfortable. Compared to the darkness of last night's events, the bright light of the room around me is striking. All it does, though, is emphasize how otherworldly places like this are. Arrhythmia. A strange word, a foreign alien one. One that you don't want to be in the same room with. A rare condition. It causes the heart to act erratically and occasionally beat way too fast. It can be fatal. It was a miracle you were able to go on so long without anything happening, they said. And then it did. My condition was taken away, everything. My old school was of no importance anymore. My home was reduced to a faraway place. Both my friends and my first love simply stopped visiting after a length of time. I became cynical and embittered, distant and subdued. In my defense, no person could avoid that after such a thing happening to them, but nonetheless, I left the hospital as a very definitely changed person. Things changed. I made new friends. In Hinako, Shizunomisha, I found a new sense of home in my dormitory. A new interest in science, in the world around me, and I found a direction to my life that I had never felt before. But I'd also discovered other things. The sense of isolation in Yamaku and its surrounds was not entirely unwelcome. The quiet giving a peace of mind I might not have found elsewhere, but it gave the area a feeling of being pushed out of the way, of being kept out of sight. People in the streets would sometimes glance awkwardly or quickly turn their heads as they realized they were staring. Even if my condition wasn't visible, my uniform was. Even if it weren't, I was still different. I took 17 pills a day, morning, midday, and night. My scar, though hidden behind clothing, was still a permanent mark of my condition. And most of all, there was a very real possibility of death. A bad fall, an absent-minded hard hit on the back, a simple sprint taken too far. Anything could have set my heart off, and several times I teetered on the edge of the abyss, even with all the care I took of myself. But that was fine. I could have lived with all that, because there was one final thing I'd found, or rather refound, after entering Yamaku, which was once again snatched away from my eyes. It's only now that I realize just how delicate my newfound sense of happiness was. Everything depended on her. the linchpin of my life since I first entered Yamaku as a sullen, confused, and aimless transfer student. Lily Satao was the one person I could depend upon above all others, and who reciprocated the love that I felt for her. But I failed her, and only realized it all too late. I thought that I could set my life up and continue to live that way forever, but the real world doesn't work like that. I finally realized the meaning of those words, only to be struck down as I confronted my failure to do so in time. Ellipsis. The surroundings I'm in now are all too familiar. It's as if Yamaku was but a dream, and I'm still recovering from my first major heart attack. Maybe that's why I feel so tired. It feels almost as if I've lived the entire last few months of my life in space of minutes. The weight of my eyelids closes my eyes, my physical and mental exhaustion letting me offer no resistance. Unintelligible mumbling from above the bed stirs me out of my sleep. With my eyes still closed, I can focus to make out someone, presumably a nurse, bidding farewell to a doctor. As I open my eyes, I notice the door closing in my peripheral vision. The doctor stands reading some notes off a clipboard held in his hand, carefully looking over the pages. After consulting his obviously very important documents, he looks up and notices my gaze. It's now that I notice something slightly odd about his expression and general disposition, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Ah, I see you're awake, Mr. Nakai. His quick glance to my bed at bed end to verify my name shows that his documents obviously didn't have it written on it. I must admit that it's a bit unfortunate. Your parents visited just earlier while you were asleep. I could notify them you're awake now if you'd like. Thanks, that would be good. I give a somewhat dazed reply, most likely one he'd expected, before really thinking about what I'm saying. Not a problem. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, I'll be happy to answer them. That is, unless you'd prefer to rest. The anesthetics still going to be affecting you a bit, I'm afraid. The anesthetics, of course. That'd be why I felt so strange the first time I woke up. I slowly shake my head, not wanting to dislodge any pipes or cause myself any more discomfort than necessary. The doctor politely puts down his clipboard in response. I guess my main question is, what exactly happened? To put it simply, you've unfortunately had another heart attack. Not as severe as your first. You were very lucky it occurred so close to a hospital. After being stabilized, you were taken to the operating room. What followed was keyhole surgery in order to insert a temporary pacemaker. All in all, the incident happened 2 days ago, with emergency treatment being carried out very soon afterwards. Since then, we've kept you under close observation while you were asleep. Will I be alright? Are there any lasting problems? Compared to the procedure carried out for your first heart attack, this was relatively minor. And I'll be right back. Alrighty, and I'm back. While you have still to undergo surgery once more in a few days, time to remove the pacemaker, assuming there are no complications, there should be no lasting implications. He continues talking, the subject shifting to a repetition of facts about arrhythmia. Medications I already know for the most part. I start to nod in fey interest while my mind drifts. I begin to think about how perfectly hung to the offensive painting hanging on the wall behind his shoulder is. How neat and sterile the surroundings are, even including the doctor himself. If my mumbling bores you, you are quite welcome to say so, Mr. Nakai. Lord knows I lose track of myself sometimes. He gives a snort chuckle at his self-deprecating joke as I grimace awkwardly, having been rather badly caught out. The doctor's chuckle sounds different from that of the nurses at Yamaku, though. Come to think of it, as I ponder why, I realize why the man in front of me feels just a little bit off. His smile is neat and sterile. He delivers his little job perfectly with a customary inoffensive chuckle. It is like, rather than talking to the man whose name is neatly printed on the name tag pinned onto his lab coat, I'm merely interacting with an actor reading off a pre-rehearsed script. Every action has been categorized beforehand. I suppose he has to be this way, though, being a doctor. He has to keep his neat and sterile smile while chatting to the girl who with cancer slowly spread through her body, when reassuring the woman who will surely die from childbirth with every other terminally and critically ill patient. The little bit of distance, a little bit of aloofness, it makes me wonder if I've been too harsh, especially considering it's a disposition far from being adopted only by people in his profession. After all, the one I loved kept the same distance from others herself. Looking up to the doctor again, I realize I've been in thought, with my head bowed for some time. I understand you must still be tired. You've been through a lot, and as I mentioned before, the anesthetic would still be affecting you. If you don't mind, I'll let you get some rest and tell your parents you've woken up for you. I think that would be good, thank you. He gives me a curt nod before picking up his clipboard and making his way to the large white door in the corner of the room, closing it behind him with a thud. In the end, I'm all alone again. Lily's gone, Akira's gone, Hanako would be traveling, and even my parents have already left the hospital. 4 pale peach walls, 1 white ceiling, and a single open window to look out toward the world outside. It's hard to think of the future when the past is crowded around me, claustrophobic in its neat, sterile, starchy, bleach-smelling grip. Lost for what to do or focus on, I content myself with sleeping the time away as if this were all just another dream like Yamaku had been. White. A sterile, clean white for sterile, clean room. My eyes open and I simply stare at the ceiling for some time. It's about as interesting as a television would be, mounted in its metal rack, hanging off the ceiling ahead of the bed. Indeed, the television saw its entire use during the time my parents were here. Left on quietly as they waited for me to wake, it had been a banal as it had been the first time I'd ended up in the hospital. Earlier today, an attending nurse had offered to turn off the EKG's speakers. I refused simply because the sound is not so entirely normal to me now. It's almost comforting in a way. The metronome-like regularity gives at least some feeling that time is moving, even in a place such as this. After some time of listening to its beeping, while I fully awaken, though I realize there's another sound in the room. Concentrating all my efforts on listening, a task made rather easy by the lack of distractions, a tiny melody can be heard, light and quiet. The music sounds almost fragile as it's dwarfed by the EKG's pulses. Tilting my head just slightly to the side in an effort to see the source of the melody without dislodging any of the sensors and pipes stuck onto me, I noticed a little wooden box sitting on the nightstand next to the bed. Ooh. My mouth opens just slightly as I silently watch the tiny yellow metal drum slowly rotate inside, the little bumps on the surface gradually moving in and out of sight. The music box is the one I gave. The creaking of the door breaks me out of my reverie, my head and heart remaining still as my eyes turn to see who comes through. Long tan skirt, peach off the shoulder sweater, pale, almost porcelain skin, blue clouded eyes, and long yellow hair. All I can do is stare at as Lily slowly walks into the room, her fingers slightly running over the wall for orientation. My mind comes to a shuddering halt. Lily? She stops mid-stride, her entire body tensing. Hisao, was that you? Her voice is quiet and pensive, echoing her expression. I thought you were... Lily takes one tentative step forward, and then another, as if she were holding herself back. Her control over her composure is for naught, though. She finally rushes over to where I lay as the last of her resistance falls. Aww. I'm slightly taken aback when she grabs hold of me, hunching over as tears begin to fall from her cheeks. Since only minutes ago I thought she was on the other side of the world. After a moment of hesitation, I rest my right hand on her soft shoulder. Hisao. Lily's body trembles as her tears blot the dark blue sheets, her emotions flooding through her carefully maintained exterior. With her face now closer, made easier to see her pale skin being lit by the sunlight from the windows, I notice her cheeks being redder than they should be. It's okay, Lily, I'm okay, you don't need to. She rights herself quickly, her crying forcefully stifled with both sadness and stubbornness remaining in her moistened eyes. Her prideful nature, always have been something to contend with, takes me off guard. Stop telling me not to worry about you, Hisao. Just this once, let me cry. I'm caught speechless. She waits for a response, but her composure breaks again after a handful of seconds. I swallow hard to try and settle my own emotions while she weeps onto my bed. A strange mixture of relief and depression welling up. Lily's here. She's really here. If I couldn't feel her skin under my hand, I'd hardly believe my own eyes. My efforts weren't for nothing. My body's attempt to take away everything that was important to me once again has been foiled. But now, I can't feel as happy about it as I thought I would. Seeing her here crying like this over me, this is one thing I'd want to avoid since coming to love her. No, even since leaving the hospital. I'm sorry, Lily. It's my fault. I'm here. I shouldn't have tried to push myself so far. I give a self-deprecating snort. After months of keeping myself together so nobody'd worry about me, I went and did something like this. Guess I'm pretty dumb. With a couple of sniffs and a long breath, Lily manages to pull herself together and calm down a bit. Little despite her red cheeks, moist eyes, and the line of her tears still visible, she delicately wears that weak smile she seemed to so often give. You needn't blame yourself. I heard later that it happened as you were running down the road after me, right? Still. She wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, returning more to her old self as rush of emotions wear off. Why did you run after me, Hisao? I moved to respond, but noticed her face tightening. Even after I said goodbye and I had left Yamaku Academy. She takes a moment to steady herself, her emotions almost bubbling up once again. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. Sorry? For the times that when I wasn't there when you needed me. Until now, I thought you just being there would be enough. I only needed you by my side to make any day feel better. Even if my body may be like this, I wanted to help you. I want to help you, Lily. To be there when you need someone. But you always were there, Hisao. Why did you want to go to Scotland, Lily? Why? I told you before. Because Akira was going and because my family summons to their home. Why didn't you say that you wanted to go? I'm not stubborn often, but this one time I need to be. I want you to stay here, Lily. I want you to stay where everyone lives. Where all your dreams and ambitions were made. If you choose to stay, I'll never leave your side. I won't let you lose another person. When I had my heart attack, I was snatched away from everyone and everywhere I knew. You showed me a new life after I came to Yamaku. I'd lost my past, but you showed me a future. It's true that I haven't always been there for you. I'm unreliable, sometimes I lied, and I thought I'd come to understand you when I hadn't even understood myself. Be that as it may, I want to give you a future as well. I want to be there for you. To share both your burdens and your happiness, just like I promised back in Hokkaido. I want you to trust me. I know I had problems coming to put my trust in you. After losing so many people, I'd known my... Oh, okay, I thought that clock said 12:57. I almost freaked. Losing so many people I'd known after my heart attack, but that's how I know that being unable to trust others can feel awful. That's why I can't watch you just throw everything away like this. I never want you to go through what I did. I would do anything to stop that. You can be quite steadfast when you want to be, can't you? As I said, it isn't often. My weak smile drops, though, as the IV in my arm digs in a little. It's a harsh reminder of my tether to my condition. Lily's face tenses as I let out a small gasp of pain, immediately making me wish I'd stifled it better. All I can do is sigh in defeat. I tried not to let anyone worry over me for the entire time since I left the hospital, but I can't even stop the one person I love most from crying over me. Even if I might finally be able to put my feelings into words, I feel pretty useless with a body like this. Every time I tried to reach out towards something, it was just snatched away, and even now, things only turned out for the best, better due to luck. I guess there's something else I should apologize for. All I can ever do is make you worry. Even now, there's very little chance I'll live anywhere near a full life. The feeling of Lily's warm, soft hands moving over my left cheek makes me lift my head up, her smile gentle and warm as she touches me. I think that is something very natural for you to say. You were always so sincere and self-conscious. You were also reserved and mild-mannered, and patient to a fault with Hanako, yet curious about everything and everyone. When I said I missed you when I was with my family, I wasn't lying or exaggerating. The thought of you was never far from my mind and helped me through that time. That's why I was so confused about what to do when my family summoned me. Even after I thought I had made my decision, you tried your hardest to challenge me about it. I didn't confess to you out of pity or believing you were somehow different from what you are. I confess because I never want to lose you. I want you to always be a part of my life, no matter what might change. You are a very beautiful person, Hisao. Your heart changes none of that, so please don't apologize for yourself anymore. For a long time, silence reigns in the room. I'm not really sure what this newly born feeling inside of me is, but it pales into insignificant as I wordlessly gaze at Lily's smiling face, warm and gentle as it has always been. God. And after this, I'm sure I'm gonna change my Skype status to online, and people are gonna be like, "Oh, I can talk now to him." Wouldn't shock me with exotics and such. It's only as her thumb crosses my cheek, wiping away a single drop of moisture, that I realize that this is all I've ever wanted. For what feels like the first time, I give an earnest, wide smile. As Lily feels it against her palm, she returns the gesture. More time passes before either of us says a word, neither of us needing speech to communicate our feelings to each other. I know I can't promise you that I'll always be around, or that we'll be together forever. With some difficulty, I slowly lift my hand, placing it on her pale shoulder. But I think I can at least take you to next year's Tanabata festival to make up for making you miss this year's. Lily's expression is one of surprise, though I can't say I blame her. You remembered that? I've got a pretty good memory sometimes. She raises her head a little and takes her hand from my cheek, giving a small amused giggle. I smile absent-mindedly at how earnest it is, almost girlish in its slightness. Still smiling warmly, she collects herself and stands upright, with a hand resting on my chest. It feels like I'm seeing her for the first time, the sun from the window glowing behind her just as it did when I first walked into that room where she was drinking tea. Very well then. Shall we make it a promise between the both of us to go to the next year's Tanabata together? Even if she can't see me doing so, I nod approvingly. I promise. I promise. Is this the end, finally? Yep. Oh, I think I'm going to enjoy the music at least a little. Oh, man. Oh. Anyways, so, good one. I am definitely going to... Oh, cool concept art there. For Lily, different outfits. It's kind of cool. So, I mean, yeah. I'm gonna take a break from recording this, and then when we come back, it'll be Rin's, and then Hanako's, and then the series will be officially ended. Honestly, I had that extra playthrough that I didn't even expect. Quite a bit. I can see why Chilled Chaos never really, did all of them. I know he did Hanako's, I think he did Emmy's. I don't know if he ever got to another person. I didn't watch all of them. I had to take a break because I couldn't really watch it. Repeat. Which means doing it and repeating kind of sucks. But yeah, that will definitely be a break. Ooh. I wonder if... Have I skipped the end, like a secret ending to the rest of them? I don't know. Akira, Lily, and I silently sit on the grassy embankment, high above the local town, the breeze gently blowing through the cloudless sky. We may be just a few minutes walk from town on a hill just outside its limits, but the view is entirely unexpected. Lily sits beside me, her eyes closed as gentle breeze flows through her hair. This is a nice area. Yeah, I never knew a place like this was anywhere near Yamaku, and I had to be the one to find it, of course. Akira's grin is genuine, but her tone is slightly different from her usual carefree nature. It's good that you're out of the hospital, though, Sal. Nobody's more glad than I am. I can't stand hospitals. So, you two going back to school tomorrow? Yep. Akira chuckles in amusement before looking back out to the town below, the trees between the buildings swaying in the wind. Pity we couldn't go up north for the summer holidays or get to Tanabata. I wouldn't worry, there's always next time. You'll be graduating before the next summer vacation, won't you? Yeah, there'll still be college after that, mind. Going to the same one? Likely, we both have high enough scores to meet the entry requirements. You sound so sure. Don't worry, you're better than I in most, what? Don't worry, you're better than I in most subjects. I guess we'll work it out in due time. That's the way, just enjoy yourselves in Yamaku while you're there. Lily gives a sad sigh at the distinction made between Akira and the two of us. Do you really need to go back to Scotland? Yeah, the folks are already out for my blood as it is. You weren't meant to stay this long? She gives her trademark wide grin. Setting my boyfriend up with a passport took some time. You're taking him with you? Just for a while at first. He's a surprisingly worldly guy, so I think he'll do just fine. Akira gives an amused snort. If our father had his way, I'd have gone a long while ago. I just couldn't pass up an excuse to stay with my favorite little sister a little while longer, though. She leans right and gives Lily a tight, playful hug, cheering her up considerably. It's nice to be with you one last time, though. For what it's worth, I'm in the same boat. Thanks, you two. I'll try and come back sometime, don't worry. It's a shame that the business keeps you so busy. The place won't run itself, I'm afraid. I think it's going to be just the same over there. Considering that, I'd be better get going. Have fun over there, Akira. Ha! Will do. With a slight grunt, she lifts herself with her hands and stands up, dusting herself off as she does so. Well, I better be off. The plane won't wait for me after all. She has a certain unusual wistfulness in the tone of her voice, her eyes firmly planted on her sister. I'll be okay, Akira. Yeah, I know. Come now, it isn't that bad. You'll be able to see us again soon. It is strange to have Lily doubting Akira for once. She really has changed. Goodbye, Akira. Goodbye. Bye, not goodbye. For a second, the dark-clad figure looks down at the both of us, smiling widely, perhaps more widely than I've ever seen her do before. She lets out a strong, silent, wavering breath to steady herself before leaving, but eventually slips her hand in her pocket and turns on her heel. And with that, she walks away, one hand held in the air as she goes. See you later, you two. A jazz tune with no beat, melody, or direction to the very end. After a few moments of sitting silently, Lily and I pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off. Turning towards her with a broad smile, I hold out my hand. Shall we be off, then? She takes my hand in hers with a gentle nod and a smile as beautiful and warm as ever. Indeed we shall, Hisao. Aw. As we set off towards the school, that wonderful smile engraves itself onto my memory. That wonderful smile that we both share. Our paths may be scattered and at times overshadowed by sadness, but they're also an irrevocable part of our lives and personalities. Even if I could change a single thing, I wouldn't, because my past was what led me here. That's why, even with all that's happening to us before, and all that may well befall us, together we'll keep walking forwards towards the future, our future.